Hello, I am Oakansa Alfred. Today, I saw it befitting to call a legal head, an attorney, to come and address our previous segment on issues in land acquisition. Mr. Piet, please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Wakansa, for having me in this platform. I am Kennedy Piet. I'm practicing as an attorney at a firm called Piet Legal Practice. We are based in Gaborone, Phase 2.
Mr. Kennedy, what do you guys do at Piet Legal Practice?
We provide legal services to the general public, to private companies, to banks, and we provide such services in the following areas of law. We provide services in conveyancing and notarial practice, the one that you just mentioned. We also do general civil litigation, where we represent clients in the courts of Botswana. We also do estates and trusts. We also provide services in employment and labor laws.
Okay.
Thank you.
Interesting. Today, what I would like us to really focus on and hone in is land acquisition and the process of land acquisition in Botswana. Could you please kindly take us through what the process looks like and where you come in as a lawyer and as Piet Legal Practice?
The area for where land issues fall is called conveyancing and notarial practice.
Okay.
This is a discipline in law which provides for registration of transfer of properties. I am the one personally dealing with clients in that area. I have an experience of over 13 years, having started practicing the law in 2010. The process really depends on the type of land that you'll be transferring. As you may be aware, we have three types of lands. We have what you call the tribal land. We have what you call the state land. We also have what we call the freehold land. So like I said, the process really depends on the type of land for which transfer is being sought. I'll start with the tribal land. This land is administered by the land boards under the Land Tribal Act. It has recently been amended, and the process is such that if the property is registered at this registry office here, we have two this registry offices here in Gaborone, and the other one is in Francistown. If the property is it falls under it's a tribal land, what you do then, you seek the consent of the land board to transfer the property. But if the property is only registered at the land board, you just transfer the land board the property at the land board. With respect to the state land and the freehold, the process of transfer on state land and freehold, one would need to go through PRS and to seek the exemption to pay or not to pay the transfer duty. You also go through the city council to get cleared. As you are aware, properties attracts what you call a levy. It's been levied on these properties that are in state land. You pay rates. So what would happen is that you seek clearance certificate from the city council, and then that's when you can then approach the district registry to transfer the property.
Okay. Piet, I love that you've touched a lot on the 310 as something that we did at length last year, beginning of the year. That was one of our primary focuses. But I just wanted us to take it step by step from what happens. There's an agent. I have identified a piece of land. I'm interested in buying it. After that, where do I go?
You have identified an agent.
Yes.
Who has shown you a property which you prefer. The next step is to approach an attorney. The attorney is the one who will assist in drawing up the agreements, in doing the due diligence first, then draw up the agreements. Due diligence is needed because you need to identify the owner of the property you are buying. You need to also find out if indeed this property exists. You also need to find out issues, as I have indicated before, that you need to pay rates at the city council. You need to find out how much is owing, how much the property is owing. You need to also find out whether this property has been attached, because as you may be aware, people take mortgage bonds on these properties to finance whatever loans they want, and normally it's called mortgage loans. So they would have taken a mortgage bond on the property, and they would have failed to pay the bank or whoever they had taken the funds from, and that person would institute proceedings at court against those people. They end up getting judgment. Because they don't have security, the only security they had or they have is this property. They will attach this property at this registry. So the due diligence is needed for that purpose. You need to find out whether this property that you are buying is encumbered or not.
Okay. Just to bring it home, who is responsible for the due diligence? Is it I as the buyer, or is it the lawyer? Is this the responsibility that I, as the buyer, now pass it on to the lawyer that I'm engaging? Or is it something that I have to pursue on my own?
You would have done a bit of that due diligence yourself, of course. You want to satisfy yourself whether what you are buying is worth it, of course, in relation to prices. But that work is better done by an attorney, because he knows what to look for. As I've stated, you may find that the property is attached, and an individual would not know that there is a likelihood that the property may be attached, but an attorney will be better placed to assist in that regard. So these are issues that are better handled by an attorney.
I completely get you. So now that we have identified the land, I have identified Piet legal practice, and I'm going in, I'm buying, and Mr. Piet has done due diligence, and the plot, everything is in order, then what's next?
The next step after having done the due diligence is to undertake the compliance stage.
Okay.
You do the compliance. Your compliance, as I've indicated before, if it's a tribal land, you have to seek the consent of the land board for you to transfer the property that is registered at this registry. For state land, as I've indicated, also you have to find out if there are any rates owing. You have to go through BURS to seek the exemption to pay transfer duty or not to pay transfer duty. So the next step is compliance.
Okay. At what point do I get possession of the property?
Once the compliance stage has been carried out,
yes,
and you have your race clearance certificate, you have your exemption certificate from BURS, you are then ready to lodge the transaction at this registry for registration of the transfer. Okay. This is done by an attorney. He lodges the documents at this registry office, either in Gaborone or Francistown. It will depend on the jurisdiction under which the property falls. If, say, for Gaborone properties, you lodge the transaction at Gaborone, but for properties in Francistown, Maung, those properties, the registration takes place in Francistown, this registry office.
Okay. Okay, I guess now we've touched on the process to getting it to a stage where we are doing the actual transfer is at the deeds office. I want us to bring it to my favorite bit. When is it advisable for you to pay the plot owner now? At what stage do you pay the plot owner? Is it once you've identified it? Is it after the lawyer, for example, Mr. Piet at Piet Legal Practice has verified that the plot is legit, or is it at the end when now there is a transfer that has taken into effect?
As I've indicated that the question that was being asked was, when is the right time to give the seller what is due to him, that being the purchase price. And I indicated that it really depends on the parties' agreement, but most importantly, it must be coming from the advice of an attorney. He is the one who is better placed to advise. But like I said, it's the parties' agreement that also plays a role. But you may have the deed of transfer out, the title in your name, and then, for example, you instruct me to give the seller the funds, only to find that this seller is owing, say, 100,000. It's possible. We've had instances where people would be owing over 50,000 for water utilities, and then you give him the money, he's gone. It would be difficult for you to recover such funds from him. So it would be best you also find out. That one, I would say it's the party's responsibility. Come to me with clearance or confirmation from the Water Utilities Corporation or whoever is providing a service to the property or to the seller. And then having that confirmation, then we can advise, yeah, the money can then be released.
So perhaps it would be advisable that from the very get-go, when somebody is selling their property, then we ask them to bring all the documents showing if they owe or they do not owe, like utilities and all of that stuff from the very beginning. I'm trying to think what happens then if we find out that, yes, there is a debt, but it's even higher than the amount which we are supposed to pay to the seller, or how do we go about that?
You'll recall that when we started this conversation, I stated that due diligence is very, very important. That is why having done your own due diligence, it won't be as perfect as one that is done by an attorney, but would advise that the attorney do the due diligence, of course with the assistance of the parties engaged, the seller and the purchaser. So you bring all that is required. That would be confirmation from various stakeholders, your utilities corporations. Likely with respect to the city council, it's a requirement that before the property is transferred, you have what you call a raised clearance certificate. So that one is not a problem, because then you'd have it with you when you go to deeds register office to register transfer of the property. But it would be very important that you bring all the balances, the settlement balances. This, of course, would include where a person would also include would also occur where a person had registered a mortgage bond over the property. You need the settlement balance from the bank, and of course that also fortunately it's one of the requirements that you cancel the bond that was registered over the property before you can even register the new title into the purchaser's names.
Mr. Piet, as it stands, there seems to be a shortage of service land, and we are under enormous pressure because there are a lot of people who want to buy, and when as a buyer, seller, and you end up feeling and succumbing to pressure in fear of losing the plot. What would you say to somebody who is perhaps watching this and thinking of, Monday we will go and see a lawyer?
I strongly advise against putting oneself under unnecessary pressure. I advise that you seek the assistance of legal advisors, legal practitioners such as ourselves. We are better placed to deal with such issues. As I've indicated, due diligence is key when acquiring a property.
Okay. Touching on that, what are some of the common mistakes that you see clients coming to you with? What are some of those mistakes, common mistakes that people approach your law firm and say, hey, hidubile kaha, please come and assist?
We do come across instances where people would have transacted with someone, they're in the streets, and they later want to come to us to assist in resolving whatever problems that would have arisen from such agreements that they would have made with such people. You indicated earlier on that a person would say it's Friday, we are going for holidays, and the seller wants his money, he wants to use the money for 1, 2, 3 over the holidays, so I'm going to give him a portion of the purchase price, or I'm going to give him the entire purchase price. I'll go and see Piet legal practice on Tuesday after the holidays. That is one of the challenges that we come across. People just transact on basing it on good faith and trusting that the person who is selling is a trustworthy person, and the person would end up giving them the property. But that never really happens. I mean, you cannot transact like that. I'd advise that you seek the assistance of legal counsel, attorneys, to assist in drawing up the agreements and then having the transaction done by an attorney who is better experienced in that regard.
It's either you duela now or I'll pay you later.
Well,
either way, whether you win.
It depends. It depends on the agreements that you would have made before an attorney. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So one of the mistakes that we see people committing is that one where people would pay each other, they conclude the agreements there, they have not done due diligence, they don't know whether they are paying the right person or they are buying the property that belongs to someone else.
It's either you do a Piet legal practice now for the agreement and due diligence and do everything properly, or I'll pay them later now. Because I get other legal advice.
Do the right thing.
Yes.
Seek assistance from attorneys.
Yes. Any last words, perhaps advice you'd like to give out to anybody who's looking to acquire land this new year?
Property acquisition is one of the milestones in one's life. You buy a property, you don't buy properties quite often. You would see that in a year you'd have bought one property. It's an achievement, and it involves quite a lot of money. Quite a lot of money is used to transact. It also takes a lot of efforts. So I would say don't take it light and say I'm buying a house. It's a lifelong investment. So I would urge and advise people looking to buy properties to follow the advices that I stated, I mentioned in this episode. People must engage attorneys. People must engage other experts because the property transfer, the property acquisition, the process does not only stop with attorneys. We also have valuers who provide valuations of the properties being bought. So I would say seek a proper advice and guidance from proper experts such as attorneys, valuers, and real estate agents.
On a final note, Mr. Piet, where do people find Piet legal practice again?
Piet Legal Practice is in Gaborone. We are in phase 2, next to CBD, of course. We are at plot 18558, phase 2, Gaborone. Our telephone number is 311-7663. You can send an email to us at info@plp.co.bw. The email again is info@plp.co.bw. Of course, we are also available in other social media platforms.
Piet Legal Practice.
The conveyancing division, or the area of law called conveyancing, the pricing or the charging of fees is regulated by an act of parliament called the Deeds Registry Act. That is the one that regulates the pricing and charging of fees in respect of transfers. What would happen is that there is a value of the property that will determine how much one needs to pay for transfer of a property of that value. So we don't kill.
Thank you so much for being here. And I hope this is truly impactful to mongwe who will come across it and see it. Strive for impact. So yeah, we look forward to having you here again and to doing more business with you this year. Yes?
You are most welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's segment. This is around about it with land and land acquisition. Next segment, we move on to other topics of business. So yeah, Strive for Impact. Follow Oakanza Alfred, LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook. Thank you. Ciao.